Welcome to episode 1 of Keeping the Hill on the Horizon. I am your host, Lady Days.
And it's your boy Roy. Thank you for tuning in. Hey, it's your boy Roy.
And I am Lady Days.
Today we're going to talk about death, inheritance, and why some people remain unprepared to pass on their wealth after death.
Yes, and we're going to concentrate on the black community because we do have to inform and educate our own.
Right, and this recently came up twice in the news this past year when DMX and then comedian Anthony Johnson, who was in the Friday movies, passed away.
Yeah, and DMX, he was only 50 years old, and he died without a will.
Yeah, now that was really something that I didn't expect because as long as he'd been in the business, well, him and Anthony Johnson have both been in the business for about 30 years, you would think that they had the business aspect and their personal aspect squared away.
Yeah, and DMX, he was living with his fiance, and he has an ex-wife with 4 kids. In addition to those 4 kids, he has 11 other kids also. So
DMX has 15 children?
yeah, 15 in total. That's what was reported.
Wow. So so he doesn't know who his money's going to go to. Well, most of his money, or actually his money will probably end up going to his children.
Right.
But only the 4 that he had with his wife are guaranteed anything. Those other 11, if they have an established paternity, they're not entitled to anything.
Well, I'm not sure. The fiance might have had one baby with him.
Yeah, but they
A
weren't.
newborn, too.
Right. Well, that, again, if paternity is established, then they'll.
Yeah.
But for the other maybe 10, they are not legally entitled to anything unless they've already established paternity before death.
Yeah, but that's why it's also important to decide what you're going to do. Like, I understand she was engaged for 8 years. That's a long time to be engaged.
Yeah.
And then in New York, they don't have the common law, but they do have domestic partnership. They should have applied for a domestic partnership.
So there's no common law marriage in New York State?
No.
I always thought there was.
No.
Wow. So yeah. So then that's a real mess for DMX because his fiance is not guaranteed anything.
Now, I wonder if he had life insurance, because that's important. He probably had life insurance. No, I believe someone buried him. Who buried him? I forget.
I think Diddy or some people came forward.
Right. So there was no problem for him to be buried, but unlike Anthony Williams.
Anthony Johnson.
Anthony Johnson, sorry.
Yeah, his wife actually put a GoFundMe to get funds to bury him.
See,
After he was
we got to stop doing that.
and he was only 54 years old.
Wow, we got to stop doing that. We
Yeah.
have to get our finances in order.
And prepare, have these conversations before death, because not only does it just leave things in complete disarray,
Right.
we also are leaving someone we don't know to decide how we're going to pass on what we have.
Yeah, it leaves a whole lot of ramifications, and especially Anthony Johnson, because that what the wife did, that's just
Yeah.
the sour. That's just
Right. She put a video up once the GoFundMe wasn't receiving the response she'd hoped for, and she was pretty much getting angry at people.
I did the GoFundMe. There's $700 in there. Few of my friends cash at me, and I made that clear. I got like another 400. But no, it's like you say. Y'all say y'all love him. Where's the love? Y'all not helping.
I'm sure that his wife regretted that right after she said it, but she made that statement when she was grieving, and that's why it's important to be prepared.
absolutely, and he wouldn't have wanted that for his legacy.
Right. That's why we have a choice of how we choose our legacy, and that comes by selecting the right attorney and estate planners and specific documents. So, I know people know vaguely of a will, but what other documents can people create?
Well, there's so many different type of wills that you can use. Well, I'm here in Florida right now, so the wills we use out here in Florida, It's something like a simple will, and a simple will is last will and testament. There's a pour over will. There's a mirror image will, and there's also a testament trust. You could Google those things to see which one would apply for you.
Oh, okay, okay. And the good thing about them is, it's not just a matter of leaving your money. It's also can determine how you want your health care to be provided in the event that you can't speak, right?
Right, also, and like the living will, because you could be alive and can't communicate what you want.
Oh,
So that's important also.
right. That's true. Like if someone has a stroke or if they're just in a coma.
Yes, yes.
Wow. Yeah. See, so it is so very important to have those conversations with your families when no one is sick and no one has passed away.
Absolutely.
Yep. So, we can also move on to the other element of passing on wealth that you talked about.
Then the other thing is savings. Stop wasting money and start saving some of that money. Yeah, like instead of buying a $400 shoe, buy a $200 shoe and then put that other $200 away.
So make savings a regular feature.
Make savings one of your first bills you pay, or your second bill. Your first bill could be your tithes if that's the life you live. Second should be yourself.
Save for the future.
Definitely. Oh, but there's so many ways. I'm a financial whisper. I can tell you a whole lot of ways to save where you won't even miss the money.
So, all right. So, give us one way where people could save who aren't accustomed to saving.
So let's say your shopping bill is $200 a month. And let's say you saved $30 because of coupons or items on sale. Instead of just spending that on more groceries, that $30 you save, in addition to whatever you pay into your savings account, should go into your savings. It's money you never miss because you wouldn't have had it.
So anytime you spend less than you expect,
Whatever you don't spend, put that
goes
in your
into a
savings.
savings. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, what kind of routine savings should somebody do if they wanted to start?
Well, if you could afford it, I would start with 25% of your 25% of your bring home pay.
So after taxes, the money that you actually get,
25%.
25% of that. So
If you can afford it, and if you can't afford it, just go down from 25. But if you could start at 25, that would be great.
Right.
And if you're starting early, like you're 18, 19, then you could go with 10 or 15%. But if
Right.
you're starting late, you want to start up there as much as you can afford to save.
Right, because you want to have something for when you're unable to work,
Right,
and you have to start higher.
right.
Okay.
Yeah. And also people got to understand, just because you have money in your pocket don't mean you have to spend it.
Get out of the spending habit.
Yes.
Yeah, that was it. My mom always say, "Yeah, like the money's burning a hole in your pocket."
Yeah, I heard that saying.
Okay, so now people think of wealth in terms of they have millions of dollars, they have stocks, they have a mansion. How can people start thinking differently about wealth?
Wow, that's a good question. So, I don't know if I'm going to say that I never thought that way. Because, I think for one, if you don't live check to check, you're wealthy.
Okay.
You're wealthy. If you don't live check to check, you're wealthy. If you're not on like, say if you get paid on a Friday and on Thursday you're like, I can't wait till Friday.
Now you're having money problems.
You're having money problems.
Okay. So start thinking of wealth in terms of what you have and how much freedom you can gain so that you're not constantly up against trying to make make the money reach the end of the week or month.
Exactly. And another thing, if you're someone who borrows $10 and $20 until paycheck, you're having problems. What you need to do is not borrow and just go it out, because you'll never get ahead if you borrow every week
Right.
or every time right before you get paid.
You find yourself short. If you find yourself short every time, you have a spending problem. It's
And
not that
do it out.
right. It's not that you're not making enough money. You're not using the money that you have wisely. Because if you made more money, you would still spend it.
And still would be borrowing
Right.
that $10 or $20 before you get paid.
Yeah. So don't think of wealth in terms of, jumping into a pot full of money. Wealth is what you have that gives you just a little bit of freedom.
Exactly. If you don't have a need for anything, you're wealthy.
Okay. Now, all right, so we talked about the need for insurance and the need for having a living will. How do people start to designate who is going to get their money if they don't have children, for instance?
Well, I don't think there's a set way to make that decision. You have to decide. If you don't have children, but you do have nieces and nephews, and some people leave it to their dog. I do not recommend that.
But start ordering some way that your whatever you leave behind is going to be received by someone else. Start thinking about it and start making plans for it.
Yes. See who's close to you, who you click with, who you do for and they do for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
That's just going to be a personal choice.
Right. But definitely have a plan. And because I know a lot of people don't want to start having those conversations about death because they feel like someone is rushing them off.
But, death is it's going to happen.
Right.
It's going to happen when it happens. So you have to talk about it.
It's unavoidable. No one gets out of the world without dying.
Right.
So have a plan and talk about it. And the earlier you talk about it, the better. It's a lot harder to have those conversations when someone is sick in the hospital.
Right. Because now they definitely don't want to talk about it. Because they could see it at the end of the line.
Right. And I guess the decisions that people make can always be changed.
Yes.
Right.
Yes. But put some thought into it. Seek out those who you trust.
Yeah. And make your wishes known.
Yes, but financial literacy is very important in the Black community. In Black America.
Yeah, because they don't teach what they used to call home economics in schools anymore. They used to do. I remember one of the classes I took was sewing, and I was like, I'm a boy, I don't want to learn how to sew. But the girls had to take things like metal shop and printing.
Yeah, I took metal shop.
And that was in 7th grade, and then in 8th grade they switched. But the idea was you start to learn all of the things that go into providing for a home.
Yeah, so you'll be a well-rounded person.
Right.
Yeah.
And I like that I know how to sew now. And I learned when I was 12.
Yeah, I had the sewing class, the typing class, the metal shop, the cooking shop. I took record keeping for economics. I took record keeping for finances, rather. So I had that. But, some finances is just common sense. Like, for example, if you're spending poor. Some stuff is just common sense.
Right.
Some stuff you need to learn, like how to use credit cards. That's understandable. You need to learn, but it's nothing difficult.
All right. So what would you say is a good strategy for using credit cards?
Well, this is not an easy task, but no one should be using a debit card. You should only be using a credit card.
And why is that?
Because credit card, you're spending your own. When you use a debit card, you're spending your money, your own money right then and there. And there's no benefit to spending your money. Credit card, you're using somebody else's money. And if you get a good credit card, you get points. So they're paying you to use the credit card. But the key thing is, everything you buy on the debit card, they take the money right away. So why not put that on a credit card? And at the end of the month, when you get your credit card bill, you pay the credit card off in full. So what that means is you can only buy what you can afford to pay for on the credit card.
Because that way, right, because you have a credit limit.
Well, it's not even the credit limit, but the key is to pay the credit card off in full so they don't charge you for using the credit card.
And that way you also build your credit because you're using it.
You're building your credit because you're using it and paying it off, so you're building it fast. But also in the process of spending their money, you're getting points for spending their money.
That's going to something else.
That you can buy, use, travel, whatever you choose to do. Or some give you free debit cards. So you get that for spending money that you're spending anyway on your debit card.
Okay. See, that's a good tip. That's a good financial tip right there.
Yes.
How to use credit.
Especially I see people use debit cards for everything.
Yeah, that's what I've been doing.
Oh, man.
And I have a credit card.
Nope, you got to do it on the credit. Well, you have to pick out a credit card that gives you good points.
Right.
So.
Okay, yeah. So I just learned something.
Yes.
I will make sure because my credit card does give me points.
Oh, yeah.
But I was thinking because I was only use credit in case of emergency. But that's an old strategy.
That's an old strategy, yes.
Because at that time, credit cards didn't give you points.
Exactly. They didn't give you anything, but they just charged you.
Right. So now that you have credit cards that reward you for usage, it's smarter to use credit cards for your purchases and pay it off at the end of the month.
Right. And that's not the only reason also. Like some credit cards, say you buy a cell phone. Say you buy an iPhone, $1,100. Then someone steals the iPhone. Some credit cards will insure your iPhone. And you put in a claim and get a new iPhone.
Without having to spend.
Without having to buy another iPhone.
But if you use a debit card,
you just lost.
You just lost $1,100. So that's another. Right? You get instant insurance without having to take out insurance. You get an insurance policy. Right. Of course, make sure that your credit card has this feature, but most of them do.
Exactly. And I know American Express was the first one that started it off with it, and at that time I was only using American Express because whatever they stole, I was insured for.
Wow.
So, yep, these are little things that the poor don't know, but the rich do.
Yeah, and that's why it costs more money to be poor.
Exactly. Because
of lack of knowledge.
Exactly.
And fewer resources. Because you can have resources even if you don't have money, and if you know how to use your resources, you can use them like money.
Exactly. And there's probably 100 others out there that I'm not even aware about yet. But rest assured, I'm going to find y'all.
All right, so just come back to the Keeping the Hill on the Horizon podcast for further financial tips. All right, so if you have any questions, you can find us on Facebook. Be sure to subscribe to our podcast.
Shouldn't they find us on Instagram also? Did we make it to Instagram yet?
Yeah, I think I'm working on the Instagram page, but definitely the Facebook page is up. Keeping the Hill on the Horizon Facebook page, and on Twitter also, Keeping the Hill on the Horizon. We'll have financial tips. We'll have tips on health, and
if you guys have any suggestions, let us know.
And we'll talk about the topic. We'll bring in an expert that we can also ask questions. You can send questions, comments, or suggestions to us through Facebook.
I am Lady D.
And it's your boy Roy. Thank you for tuning in.